Turn on your television, open your newsfeed. What do you see? You see the flags, blue and yellow, held by tearful but resilient faces. You hear the speeches from world leaders, standing at polished podiums, their voices thick with resolve. They speak of solidarity, of unwavering support, of a global coalition united against tyranny. You see images of cargo planes with national insignias, their bays opening to reveal pallets of humanitarian supplies. Billions, they tell you. Billions are being pledged to help the brave people of Ukraine, to rebuild their homes, their schools, their lives. It is a modern-day Marshall Plan, a heroic saga of compassion unfolding in real time. A testament to the best of human nature. This is the story you are being told. It is a beautiful story. It is powerful, moving, and expertly crafted. And it is a complete and utter illusion. You have to understand that on the world stage, the real stage, nothing is ever given for free. Behind every grand gesture of charity lies a cold ledger of accounts. And behind this grandest of gestures lies the single largest corporate takeover in the 21st century. You think they are sending aid to Ukraine? Think again. They are not sending aid. They are buying it, piece by piece, at a fire sale price. This isn't a rescue mission. It's an acquisition. Let's step away from the heartwarming press conferences and look at the numbers. The World Bank, the EU, and the UN have estimated the cost of reconstructing Ukraine to be somewhere between $400 billion and $1 trillion. Pause for a moment and let that number sink in. $1 trillion. Does that sound like a humanitarian budget? Or does it sound like the valuation of a nation put up for auction? The war, for all its genuine human tragedy, has served a secondary, profoundly cynical purpose. It has created the perfect justification for what the financial world calls a total reset. It is the ultimate real-world application of the shock doctrine. You reduce a country to rubble, you plunge its economy into desperation, you create a need so vast, so overwhelming, that the government has no choice but to accept any terms offered. The crisis is not the obstacle, the crisis is the opportunity. It is the smokescreen needed to dismantle an entire nation's economic structure and reassemble it in a new image. An image designed by, and for, its new owners. The story they sell you is, "Build Back Better." It's a wonderful, optimistic slogan. But you must learn to translate the language of power. Build back better does not mean restoring what was lost. It means raising the old foundations, the state-owned industries, the sovereign control over resources, the laws protecting national assets, and building a new structure from the ground up. A privatized structure. This is the Trojan horse. The humanitarian aid, the emergency loans, the development funds, they are the magnificent gift wheeled to the gates of a besieged city. It looks like salvation, it feels like hope, but what is inside? Not soldiers with swords, something far more effective. Inside are teams of lawyers, investment bankers, and policy advisors. They carry not weapons but contracts, restructuring agreements, memorandums of understanding. They are the architects of the new order. As soon as the gates are open to accept the gift, they will pour out and begin their work. Quietly, efficiently, legally. And who, you might ask, has been invited to help draw the blueprints for this new structure? In November 2022, the Ukrainian government signed a memorandum of understanding with BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. Officially, BlackRock's Financial Markets Advisory Group is to provide advisory support for designing an investment framework. Let me translate that for you. The largest concentration of private capital on Earth has been given the task of creating the very mechanisms through which a nation's assets will be sold off. Have you ever heard of a fox being hired to redesign the henhouse? This is the part of the story they don't show you on the evening news. They won't cut from a presidential handshake to the fine print on an IMF loan, the print that demands structural reforms and privatization of state-owned enterprises. They won't explain that the price for this help is not gratitude. The price is sovereignty itself. The agricultural land, some of the most fertile black earth on the planet, the breadbasket of Europe. The energy grids, the state-owned banks, the shipping ports, the mineral rights, everything has a price tag. So, I ask you to begin to view the world through a new lens. A lens that is not clouded by the professionally managed narrative. The next time you see a politician promising another billion for Ukraine, I want you to ask yourself the one question that matters. The question they never want you to ask. Who, exactly, benefits? Who are the ultimate shareholders of this reconstruction? It is not the Ukrainian people. They are being transformed from citizens of a sovereign nation into tenants in a country they no longer own. What you are witnessing is not a war of nations in the traditional sense. That was merely the first act. This is the second act, a financial invasion, silent and invisible, waged not with tanks and missiles, but with debt and contracts. The prize is not a flag planted on a hill, but a name signed at the bottom of a deed. The story is far more intricate than you can imagine. The offer of aid was just the opening gambit. So, if these grand promises are merely the cover, who are the real players moving the pieces on this trillion-dollar chessboard? Who are the shadow architects drawing the maps for this new corporate territory? In the next chapter, we will pull back the curtain. We will name the names and expose the meticulously engineered plan they have designed to own a nation. In the last chapter, we stood at the gates of the Trojan horse, marveling at the scale of the gift being offered to Ukraine. Now, we unlatch the doors. We do not find soldiers. We find something far more potent, the architects, the enforcers, and the beneficiaries of a silent, financial conquest. This is not a random collection of actors. This is a meticulously assembled cast, each with a specific role in a trillion-dollar play. First, meet the architect, the grand designer, BlackRock. Do not think of BlackRock as merely a company. That is far too small a concept. Think of it as a financial nervous system that spans the globe, a reservoir of capital so vast, over $9 trillion, that it bends markets and governments to its will. When we spoke of the November 2022 Memorandum of Understanding, this was not a partnership of equals. It was a capitulation. The Ukrainian government, desperate and out of options, didn't just ask for advice. They handed the pen to the very entity that stands to gain the most from the blueprint it draws. The agreement states BlackRock will coordinate the efforts of investors and channel capital into the reconstruction. Let us translate this from the sanitized language of corporate press releases into the language of truth. Coordinating investors means BlackRock gets to assemble the consortium of its most powerful clients and allies. Channeling capital means they get to build the very financial vehicles, the funds, the bonds, the special purpose entities that will be used to buy up the nation's assets. They have been given the astounding privilege of designing the auction, inviting the bidders, and managing the bank. A coincidence? There are no coincidences at this level of finance and power. They have created a perfect, closed loop. They will advise the government on what to sell, and then they will manage the funds for the private clients who will be doing the buying. It is the most elegant conflict of interest as a business model you could ever imagine. The Ukraine Development Fund, as it will likely be called, is not a tool for Ukraine's recovery. It is BlackRock's checkout counter. But even the most brilliant architect needs a demolition crew. A plan to acquire a nation's assets is useless if those assets are not for sale. That is where the second player enters the stage, the enforcers. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. On the surface, they are the stalwarts of global stability, the lenders of last resort. They arrive with billions in emergency loans, their representatives speaking in soothing tones about macroeconomic stability and good governance. This is the public face. The private reality is that they are the system's loan sharks. Their money never comes free. It comes with chains. They call them conditionalities or structural adjustment programs. A more honest term would be a list of demands. A legal crowbar to pry open a sovereign economy. Go and read the terms yourself. The documents are public, hidden in plain sight on their own websites. A recent $15.6 billion IMF package for Ukraine comes with requirements to fight corruption and reform institutions, all laudable goals. But buried within the language is the real price. The requirement to advance gradual privatization, to reduce the state's footprint in the economy. This isn't a suggestion, it is a condition of the loan. Fail to comply, and the money stops. In a time of war, this is not a choice, it is a threat. It is the IMF and World Bank holding the patient's drip feed hostage until he signs over the deed to his house. They provide the leverage BlackRock needs. They force the Ukrainian government to put the family silver on the table, the electricity grids, the ports, the state-owned banks, the mineral rights, and most importantly, the land. This brings us to the third group in this unholy trinity. The beneficiaries, the ones waiting at the table, knives and forks in hand. The great multinational corporations, primarily in agriculture and energy. Cargill, DuPont, Monsanto. These are not just brand names on your food packaging. They are titans who have for decades dreamed of controlling Ukraine's legendary Chernozem, the rich, black earth that makes it the breadbasket of Europe. Under previous Ukrainian law, the sale of this precious agricultural land to foreigners was heavily restricted. But under the pressure of the crisis and the reforms demanded by the IMF, these laws have been dismantled. Now, the feast can begin. They are not coming to help Ukrainian farmers. They are coming to replace them, to consolidate small holdings into vast corporate-owned plantations, controlling the food supply of a continent. The same story is unfolding in energy. The state-owned energy companies, which once belonged to the people of Ukraine, are now prime targets for privatization. Who do you think will be bidding for control over Ukraine's vast natural gas reserves and its critical energy infrastructure? It will be the very energy giants whose names you already know, clients of the very funds that BlackRock manages. Do you see the perfect alignment now? It is a three-act structure. Act 1. BlackRock, the brain, designs the takeover vehicle and the legal framework. Act 2. The IMF and World Bank, the muscle, use debt as a weapon to force Ukraine to put its most valuable assets up for sale. Act 3. The corporate giants, the mouth, step in to consume the assets at prices determined by the crisis. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a business plan, executed in broad daylight and documented in official papers. They call it a public-private partnership. Understand what that means. The public part is that the Ukrainian state and its Western allies absorb all the risk and create the legal opportunity. The private part is that global corporations capture all the assets and future profits. It is the socialization of risk and the privatization of reward on a national scale. So when you hear about the noble project of rebuilding Ukraine, I want you to see this perfectly engineered machine in operation. It's a system that has been refined in other crises around the world, but never on this scale. Here, in Ukraine, they are perfecting the model of debt colonialism for the 21st century. They are establishing the ultimate precedent. In the wake of a crisis, national sovereignty can be seamlessly, legally, and profitably transferred to the balance sheets of a global financial elite. They have the plan, they have the tools, they have the vulnerable target. But you must not make the mistake of thinking their ambition ends at the borders of Ukraine. Ukraine is not the endgame. It is the laboratory. It is the blueprint. In the final chapter, we will discuss the true, terrifying scope of this model, and how the reconstruction of one nation is a dress rehearsal for the restructuring of our entire world. You must not make the mistake of thinking their ambition ends at the borders of Ukraine. That is the most dangerous assumption you could possibly make. Ukraine is not the endgame. It is the laboratory. It is the sterile environment where a model is being perfected, a blueprint drafted for a new kind of conquest. What we have laid out is not a tragedy confined to Eastern Europe. It is a dress rehearsal, a trial run for the wholesale restructuring of the global order. Let us be perfectly clear. This is the shock doctrine in its most refined and potent form. The strategy is clinical in its simplicity. First, you engineer or exploit a crisis of profound scale, a war, a pandemic, a financial collapse. You create a state of shock, of collective trauma. The public, reeling and disoriented, is too consumed by the struggle for daily survival to notice what is happening in the halls of power. Their fear becomes your cover. Their desperation becomes your leverage. And in that narrow window of opportunity, before the dust settles and the people can think clearly again, you ram through radical economic policies that would have been unthinkable in times of peace. Policies that transfer immense public wealth into private hands. Does this sound familiar? It should. Think of the fire sale of state assets in Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Think of the no-bid reconstruction contracts awarded to Western corporations in Iraq after the invasion. Think of the trillions of dollars, created from thin air during the pandemic, that flowed not to small businesses or struggling families, but directly into the vaults of the largest corporations and financial institutions in history. Each crisis was presented as unique. Each solution was described as a necessary, one-time emergency measure. This is the great deception. They are not separate events. They are iterations. They are steps in the same, long march. Ukraine is simply the latest, most audacious step. Here, they are perfecting the formula for transforming national sovereignty into corporate sovereignty. When a consortium of financial firms, led by BlackRock, can be formally invited to write the economic future of a nation of 40 million people, what does a flag or a national anthem even mean? When the IMF's debt conditions can force a democratically elected government to auction off its most precious resources, its land, its energy, its ports, to the highest foreign bidder, who is truly in charge? It is not the politicians whose faces you see on television. They are merely the temporary managers, the local administrators of a global estate. The true power resides on the balance sheets of entities that have no flag, no anthem, and no allegiance to any people. only to their shareholders and their bottom line. Do you see the pattern yet? They are not just coming for nations. They are coming for everything. Look at what these same players are doing in your own country. While the media distracts you with political theater, these same investment funds have been quietly, methodically buying up single-family homes across America and Europe. They are becoming the largest landlords in the world. Why? Because they understand the blueprint. They are creating a crisis, a housing affordability crisis, and then positioning themselves as the solution. A world where you will own nothing. You will rent your home, you will rent your car, you will rent your software. Your life will become a subscription service, paid monthly to the same handful of global monoliths. The dream of ownership, of building equity, of passing something on to your children, that is being systematically dismantled and sold back to you as a service. From the black earth of Ukraine to the suburban cul-de-sac in Ohio, the strategy is the same: convert assets into financial instruments, concentrate ownership, and farm the population for rent. This brings us to the most critical point. We are standing at a precipice and looking down into a future that is being meticulously engineered for us, not by us. A future where national governments are hollowed out shells, their primary function being to enforce contracts and manage the population on behalf of their corporate creditors. This is not an accident. This is not the inevitable result of market forces. It is the result of a plan that relies on one crucial element for its success: your apathy. Your silence. Your silence is their consent. Your distraction is their greatest weapon. Every moment you spend arguing about the manufactured controversies they feed you is a moment they spend signing the deeds to your future. Every time you consume the news without asking the most fundamental question, you are helping them build the walls of your own enclosure. So I am not asking you to believe me. I am ordering you to wake up. This is not a spectator sport. The fate of the world is not determined by those who watch, but by those who act. It is time to stop being a passive consumer of information and become an active investigator of reality. Analyze. Do not just read the headline, read the IMF loan agreement. Do not just listen to the politician's speech, trace the flow of the money. Verify. Use the keywords we have given you: Ukraine Development Fund, BlackRock Mo Ukraine, IMF conditionalities. The documents are there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those with the courage to look. Share. Break the spell of silence. Send this analysis to 5 people you know, not to convince them, but to make them ask the question themselves. We are not building a movement of followers. We are trying to ignite an army of independent thinkers. And above all, from this day forward, for every major event that unfolds on the world stage, I want you to carve one question into your mind. Let it be the lens through which you see everything. It is the key that unlocks the entire agenda. Cui bono? Who benefits? If corporations can buy a nation, do you think they will stop there? In the next chapter, we will expose how these same funds are quietly consolidating their control over the most essential asset of all, the global food supply, turning the very sustenance you need to live into the next frontier of financial domination. Who will own your future? The answer starts with who owns what you eat.